oh, I have a lot of startup companies that come to me and they're like, I need a website. I need a website. I'm like, how many times have you sold yet? They look at me and they go,
Mm,
zero.
yeah.
I haven't sold anything. I'm like,
Yeah.
okay, go sell that 10, 20, maybe 30 times, and then come talk to me and we can get a proper website for you. Because if you don't know your sales conversation, then no one else is going to know what you sell. And you're just kind of throwing some darts
Yeah.
at a target board, hoping that it hits.
Hey everyone, welcome back to Reanimated Stories. This is Roger from Reanimation Design, and I'm really excited that today I get to have a conversation with Jessica. Jessica is the owner of Buzzworks and also has another position, which we will get to in just a moment, because I think that we're going to have a really cool conversation today. So, Jessica, thank you so much for
Thank you
coming
for having
today.
me on. I'm excited to do this show with you, Roger.
Yeah, well, thank you. Yeah, I appreciate it. I'm really excited. Well, let's get into it, Jessica. Why don't you go ahead and just tell my audience, just let us know, what is it that you do?
Well, it's kind of similar to what you do. So, Buzzworks is a web design agency. We started 13, 14 years ago. The origination of the name was actually my first business as a young child was bees. And so we had bees in our
Cool.
backyard. We would extract the honey and we would take it to the local health shops and we would sell the honey. And so from there, we learned about, okay, costs and expenses of business. We sell this much honey, we have to pay this and all those good basic things you need to know about business. So that was my first entrepreneurial journey as a child, about at 12 years of age. From there, I did the whole college route, went into the ad agency world. And then one day I was like, you know what? If I'm going to do this for others, I might as well do it for myself. So I broke off on my own, was doing an ad agency, billboards, campaigns, everything. And I wanted to have a family. So I said, what part of the business can I focus down in? And that's rinse, wash, repeat. Still uses my creative energy, still uses my marketing background, still uses my technical background. And I said, websites. So that's where we became full on a web design agency, which is exactly what you do.
Awesome. Well, I'll be honest with you. I didn't know about the. You might have told me about the bees before, but that's awesome. That's really cool. I always find, side note, right? But I always find that whole ecosystem very interesting. And I remember there's been like a couple of like post-apocalyptic movies, and I remember one in particular wasn't very good, but like the whole premise. Well, a large part of the premise was them trying to get the bee population back up. So I've always found that actually pretty interesting. So that's actually really cool. Yeah, no, I've always found that kind of interesting. So again, that was a super side
So
note. But you know,
what's
if you're
fun
listening, you're probably
what's
thinking, "Oh,
funny
go
is
ahead."
I actually have a bee rescuing client out in California. Yeah,
Oh,
because
really?
it is
Wow.
illegal to exterminate bees in California.
Yes,
And
yeah.
so
Yes,
all
yeah.
he does is he climbs the roofs. He used to be a firefighter. He came from the same background of having an apiary. And so he rescues the bees.
Oh,
He doesn't want
wow.
the apiary anymore. So he rescues them, takes them to an apiary, and lets them live on.
Oh my gosh. I saw this one and came across like it was like YouTube or something like that, but it came across and these people were like, yeah, so we heard this like noise in our garage and we were just like, I'm not really sure what it is. But then they were like, over the like next few days, it just got louder and louder. And we started to see bees like just randomly flying around, but then it started to get more. And I was just like, oh, this is not going to go well. Right. And so like, I'm hooked now because they're talking about it. So they brought the dude and they had the drywall. So he puts on his stuff and it was two of them. And so they took off, or no, I'm sorry. I think they started at the bottom. And so they took off the bottom of, the drywall. And so there was quite a few bees that were just kind of hanging out there. So he pulls off the next part and he's doing it slow, but he took off like, I mean, man, it was like at least like 3 to 4 feet wide. And it was like the whole like roof. And I mean, it was just nothing but just this gigantic beehive. And so then he had to like, extract them. And it was so interesting that process. But I was just like, and it was funny because people in the comments too were like, how did you not like hear that? Like that's, there, because at first they were like, oh, it was a few bees. But people were like, that's a little bit more than a few bees. Like, oh my gosh, that's so crazy. And so now every time I see like a bee around, I'm like, okay, is it going into my house? Okay, no, I'm good. Okay, whew, man, because that would be, I don't know what I would do with that sort of thing. My wife's allergic to bees, but yeah, I don't know. I just always found that
Well,
actually
if he
really interesting.
he'll
So,
talk about it and he'll be like, "Okay, well," and he knows how to track the bees as he that's how good he is. He tracks the bees as they fly to
yeah.
figure out where their entry point.
Oh, wow. Oops. Hold on a second, Jessica. It looks like your mic got muted.
Not sure how that not sure how that
There we
happened
go.
because I'm way
Yeah.
back here.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I know. All of a sudden your mic cut out and I was like, I'm not really sure what's happening. So go on. You had just said that the he could track the bees
Yeah,
and see where their
our,
entry point, and then you cut
RB
off.
rescuer, he can track the bees where they go in the roof, and then he's able to pinpoint and figure out how large the hive is just by looking at how many bees are coming in and out. So it's really like he's way above my
Oh
level
my
of
gosh.
beekeeping. Mine was like a backyard apiary.
Wow.
We run like
Yeah.
20, 30 hives at once. So
Oh, wow. Wow. Well, that's wow. 30 highs. That's crazy. Yeah, no, that's in the noise, like that like buzzing noise, as they like as there's a ton of them. I'm like, dude, I don't know how in the world. But it is also like in a weird sort of way, it is almost like relaxing, when you have that many, but especially when they're like in a semi-controlled, environment and not just one that like, whoa, just like ran by your head or something like that. So yeah, no, that's cool. Yeah, no. Well, anyway, so welcome to Reanimated Stories where we talk about beekeeping. So so Jessica, tell us a little bit about what you do with Buzzworks. And people might think like, well, Roger, you do marketing, so why do you have another web designer on? Well, because you learn from others, and especially those who have done it longer than you have a great relationship with them, you collaborate and you find out how they're doing it and just the wonderful things that they're doing. So yeah, so tell us a little bit about what you do in Buzzworks and
So the
how
best
you
way to
do it.
explain how and what we do in Buzzworks is we take your top sales conversations and we turn them into website experiences. A lot of people think
Mm,
they can just slap a landing page up and it's going to work. But more and more
yeah.
today, your conversations out in the real world need to be reflected on your website. So that way, when you're sending out your sales team and your reps to your clients, what they're saying to your potential clients is reflected on your website, and you're creating this whole customer journey of cohesion. So that way, when they get to your door, they know exactly what to expect.
Man, that is key. So key because a lot of times you'll talk to people and they may just kind of word vomit, right? Like they're just like, "Oh, we do all these things," but then they get to your website and you're like, "I'm not really sure. There's a lot of pictures here, but I'm not really sure what you do." And I think that that is so key what you just said that when your sales team is out there, if you're networking and then, they go to your website, like you want there to be a byline. You want there to be like that same thing so that they know what they're expecting. I think that's also really great. I love that idea of you're taking that sales conversation. I sometimes tell people like, your website should be your best salesperson, right? And when you have those conversations, so how do you find out what those conversations are that they're having out and bring that to the
So,
website?
a lot of times, well, all the times, we do a 90-minute discovery session. Usually, it's with the CEO because we want to capture his vision, mission, and values. Sometimes, if they have that extended sales team, we bring the top two sales rep inside to the conversation as well. So that way, we can capture the CEO's vision of the site, but we can get on the boots on the ground running with the actual conversations that are coming. So it's kind of a twofold of, hey, where is the vision, the branding of this company, but what's actually going on out in public that's making the company move. So it all starts with a 90-minute discovery session. And if you have a web designer that is not starting with a discovery session, that they're saying, hey, let's go do SEO, let's go do this, let's create a brand, and they're not starting with a conversation, you need to mark them off the list and go find someone else, like me or Roger.
Yeah. Yeah, no, well, I remember when I first started, it was like, all right, well, let's just get this going. And then it's like I'd come to a point to like as I'd start and I'd be like, oh, well, I actually really don't. I mean, like I know what they do, but it's like, oh, I need to have a long conversation with them. So yeah, it's crucial to have that. Are there certain industries that you sometimes or that you typically have, or is there certain ones that you kind of like to have, or how
So
does
my
that work
favorite
for you?
industries are kind of the professional services. So we're looking at like CPAs, attorneys, executive recruiting, sometimes executive leadership. I try to stay out of the trades unless it's commercial trades. Once you get down to the residential,
Mm,
it gets more B2C and they're looking for those numbers versus the relationship. So,
yeah.
super sticky sweet websites, they thrive in building those relationships between the client and the prospect. And that's when you really get aligned. Oh, I have a lot of startup companies that come to me and they're like, I need a website. I need a website. I'm like, how many times have you sold yet? They look at me and they go,
Mm,
0.
yeah.
I haven't sold anything. I'm like,
Yeah.
okay, go sell that 10, 20, maybe 30 times, and then come talk to me and we can get a proper website for you. Because if you don't know your sales conversation, then no one else is going to know what you sell. And you're just kind of throwing some
Yeah.
darts at a target board, hoping that it hits.
Yeah, and then it's also gonna continue changing. It's like, "Oh, okay, well, we wanna do this," and it's like, well, then a month later, they're like, "Oh, no, we wanna do this," and it's like, "Well, okay, no, like, you're throwing darts at the board of spaghetti on the wall," and it's like, "Okay, what are we doing here? You're making me do, like, a new website every other month or anything," so you had mentioned a phrase there, super sticky
Okay.
sweet websites, right? That's a phrase that you use. Could you explain that a little bit? I
Yeah,
always
so
always
that's
like
our
that.
tagline. So super. You have to have a super lead generation. Where are your people coming from to get to your website? Sticky. Once they're there on the website, you have to give them something to stay on the website. If they are bouncing off of your website, now your website isn't sticky and it gets ranked lower in Google. And then sweet. This is the one part that everyone misses on their website is giving them a good call to action. People need to be stepped through your customer journey, whether it's in person or on your website or in email. They have to have that next step. If you do not have that ask on your website, they don't know what to do. It's like giving them a prompt to say, yes, you really do want to come talk to me. Fill out this form and we'll get something scheduled.
Well, I think we're done with our podcast because that was fantastic. No, that was wonderful. Super sticky, sweet. So those three things you need to have that. You got to give them some value. You got to make sure that they're going to want to stay so that which comes into you got to let them know what you're doing and you got to have those conversations. And then I love that you got to give them a call to action. I tell people like 70%, like if I'm doing a website checkup, it's like 95% of the time I can't get past the hero, the header, whatever you want to call it, the top or whatever they call it, because people call it different things, but the hero image. And I'm like, you don't have a call to action. I don't know what you want me to do. You have one at the bottom of the website, but I can tell you nobody's going to the bottom of the website and looking at that. You need to have it at the top. So that's absolutely fantastic. Jessica, you not only do you do that, but you also are the CEO of Success Champions Networking. And I want to kind of talk a little bit about networking. You had mentioned earlier that, your sales conversations, the things that you're doing and that you're saying out when you're networking, when you're having those sales calls, needs to be reflected on your website and through that whole journey. Let's talk about that idea of when you're building those relationships, like you said, how does that come into play with when you're networking? Because a lot of times people just like see like, okay, we're going for this transaction. That's it. How does building that relationship not only help you on your website, but also help you off the
Okay.
website?
So if you think of networking, you networking is a group of people that you surround yourself. Most likely or ideally, you're surrounding people with your ideal client profile. Because you're surrounding people with your ideal client profile in networking, that pushes your authority up in that space. Okay. If you take our website and we look at SEO, if you surround your website with digital assets, whether it's social media, whether it's guest blogging, whether it's podcast, whatever it may be, if you're surrounding your website with those digital assets, you also become an authority in your space. So the two intertwine together. If you have your authority in your real life with people and your authority in your digital space, that's when the magic happens and comes together and everyone it all just starts clicking and people start finding you naturally, organically, and you're not having to throw all this money into paid advertisement.
That is so crucial. I think that I'd heard this idea of how you build your online and you build your online presence in your website like, what is it, horizontally, but then you also build it like vertically. And just like you were saying, when you're doing that offline as well as online, like that really changes the game. And, you're thinking like people are starting to build that authority, maybe you're getting backlinks, but then other people are going to your website because they're also hearing about you in person. So you're starting to surround yourself. I think that that's extremely crucial. What is it about building now? Obviously, building relationships takes a little bit longer, but how does that differ really than just kind of this, fast transaction? Because you had mentioned, you don't necessarily do like trades or those that need something quick. You're really looking to kind of build that relationship. How does that come into play with websites and networking, and how does one differ from the other and can benefit you?
With your website, um, and how it builds relationships, you can use it to bring experts from your network in to build authority. So, say you want to do a guest blog, and just for example, we both know Sarah Losey. She's in podcasting, right?
Hmm.
And so we bring her in to talk about podcast on our blog. It's still digital marketing, but now we can have a conversation of how podcasting and websites work together and coincide and build SEO. Um, so not
Yeah.
only do you have the client relationships, you also have your networking relationships that you can pull in. Now, on the client side, there are things that you can do to build those relationships, because usually when people are, if say they're coming to your website for the first time and they're a cold lead, they're coming to your website because they have a problem. What is that problem that they need that instant band-aid to put over? That instant band-aid can become a lead magnet to bring them deeper into your ecosystem and into your email. One of the good ways to find these band-aids is, if you're active on your blog, go take a look at your Google Analytics and see which blog posts are getting hit the most. Take those blog posts and reformat them into a lead magnet where people have to give you their email to get the solution to their problem. And when you give them the solution to their problem, now you're starting to build that digital relationship of trust. So when they are ready to talk to you and say, I really don't have the time to solve this problem, this person over here is the expert at it. Let me go talk to them and bring them in to do this for me.
That is probably one of the biggest things that I think sometimes people miss is they're just like, I want to tell people what I do. I just want to, I'm going to let them know all the things that I do, and kind of like me, how great I am, right? Or how great the company is, whatever. But yeah, if they're going because, yeah, maybe they have heard like, oh, you're a good web designer, or you're a good CPA, or whatever it is that they're going to your website for. But if you're not letting them know that you solve a problem, and not just like, I'm the best at what I do, right? You're saying, hey, I understand this struggle. I get it, because you know that this is what they're struggling with. And having that lead magnet there to not only let them know that, hey, you have that experience and that expertise and that authority to help them trust you to solve that problem, but also because you get their email, which is something that is sacred, right? You're getting their email because people don't just give their emails away. And so now you're able to kind of nurture that, stay top of mind, so that they may not be ready yet. Cause I tell my clients, like, what is it, like 60, like probably more than 60% of the time, they're going to get to your website. They may not be ready, but if you provide them some value, and then they come back and you just continue nurturing them and helping them remember you, they're going to come back eventually. So that's absolutely fantastic. Jessica, what have you found to be, and I know it may kind of differ, but what have you found to be a pretty effective lead magnet?
Well, it just kind of depends on the company. I mean, we were looking at bookkeeping
Yeah.
websites the other day, and they had this amazing lead magnet where the client could go in and toggle on and off to figure out the exact price that it would be to work with that bookkeeping and CPA firm.
Yeah.
So, especially in a world today, anything that you can take as a lead magnet and make it interactive, people for to play around with, turn switches on and off, it makes them stick on the website because they're like, "Oh, I don't have to go anywhere. I can get my answer question here." And especially with the younger generation, I mean, they are scared to pick up the phone. I don't know about you, but when I was in an ad agency, I actually had to teach people how to answer the phone at an ad agency.
Um,
So they need that interaction and that interactivity to break down the barriers and actually want to talk to you.
Yeah, no, that's key. That's something that I have noticed that has started to be a little bit more popular is really that idea of like a quiz or some sort of, figure like widget that you can, check if it's like a how much is my mortgage payment going to be, right? Because I mean, you think of like those realtor websites that do that. I mean, that's great. Or, like, hey, take this quiz and see, this, not the BuzzFeed quizzes, but like, hey, see, do you need my service? That sort of thing. So those are absolutely fantastic. So if someone was thinking like, "Hey, you know what? That sounds really cool, Jessica." And I like how you're kind of thinking through not just on like on the website, but also thinking off the website and what's surrounding the website because that's key, right? Just like you said earlier, you have this website and I always tell people like you have this website, but it's just a digital brochure or it's this island that's out in the sea that we call Google. If someone was thinking, "Okay, I kind of feel like I'm where Jessica is," what do they need to think through to be like, hey, you know what? I might need someone like Jessica and not my cousin Bobby who did my website, for this steak dinner that I gave him. What are some things that they need to kind of start thinking through to be like, maybe I do need to kind of look at what Jessica's doing or see what she's to start thinking about my online presence on my
Number
website.
one thing is you need to start thinking about your ideal client profile. If you can get focused in on your ideal client profile, that is what is going to make you win. Whether it's based on geography, whether it's based on an industry type, whether it's based on what you actually do and provide as a service and how you do that. When you focus in on your ideal client profile, that's when you see companies take off and really surge because they're focused in, they know the exact language and the conversations they need to have. A lot of people start businesses and they think the business is about me, it's about my mission, it's about my vision. But really, people hire you to solve a problem. So, really, your business should be about your client's mission, your client's vision that encompasses your mission and vision as well.
Yeah, that is absolutely crucial because if you don't, you're just kind of like, well, I'm for everybody. And if you're talking to everybody, nobody's listening and somebody else is gonna, pick them up. And so yeah, that's absolutely crucial. That's a great word. Where can people find you? How can they connect with you? Not just on your for websites, but also for networking. How can
Okay,
they connect with
so
you?
most active platform is going to be LinkedIn. So you can find me at Jessica Gruber on LinkedIn. I also started a YouTube channel, so it's at Business
Oh,
Networking
awesome.
with Jess. So that one is strictly focused on networking. And then of course my website is going to be buzzwks.
Awesome. Cool. I didn't realize that you had started that YouTube. That's really awesome. I've seen Jessica speak at least twice. Well, actually, no, I guess it was three times because I think it was twice at the summit. But yeah, no, absolutely fantastic. And Jessica, you've really through those exercises, you've really helped me kind of start thinking through, okay, well, who is my ideal client? Because that's extremely important to for any business to really think of. So I really do appreciate that. And do you have any last words? Let me ask you this. What do you think has been, and you don't have to say the name of it, or what do you think has been the coolest website that you've built? And then let me also say this. Let me also ask you this. The website that you thought like, okay, cool. Like we put some time into this, but not that you weren't confident, but like the expectations like exceeded you. You were like, whoa. And it really kind of helped you really maybe rethink how you did things.
The coolest website we worked on most recently, we got hired to work with a classic car rental company. And that was
Cool.
amazing because personal branding has made stock photography a kind of cringe. But when you get into
Yeah.
classic cars, you cannot replicate those with stock photos. So it was a full on photo
No.
shoot, capturing the stories, why they want to rent these cars out. And it was a family based business. So it wasn't just meeting a
Yeah.
CEO, it was meeting the family completely together. That was an amazing. And I mean, when they text me that they were at a Folds of Honor and they donated a car and
Oh,
it auctioned for $100,000, and so they raised $100,000 for
wow.
Folds of Honor. Most amazing feeling ever.
That's cool. Yeah, no, I bet. Speaking of that, I guess let me ask you one more question before we head out. You mentioned stock photography. And one thing that I tell people is, unless you do it really, really, really well, or your business is literally that. Thoughts on AI and web design, whether it's photos, whatever. Where do you kind of, should one think through using AI when it comes to a website?
I have not seen anything released in AI that can take over web design builders at the moment. There's places where it can supplement. It's There's places where it can help you think through strategy. One of my favorite ways to use it right now is going into Google Analytics, looking at the data, bringing it to ChatGPT and say, "Give me analysis of what this is." That way I don't have to break it down.
Yeah.
So there are places to use it, but have I seen any AI website builder that replaces human yet? The answer is no.
Yeah. Awesome. And there you have it. All right. Well, we're done. No. Yeah. So if you are interested in connecting with Jessica on anything, whether it's networking or saying, "Hey, Jessica, I need you to look at my website because I don't know what in the world is going on," I will have her links down in the description so you can check her out. Jessica, thank you so much for taking time out today and joining me on here. So thank you
Yeah,
so
thank
much
you
for
for
coming.
having me. And you guys, if you like this show, make sure you subscribe to Roger's show, Reanimated Stories.